Which is what if Naruto was banished with Kurama and built Neo Uzushiogakure with Hinata as the first queen. Part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. It was late into the night on the shores of Kase no Kuni. There was a calming breeze that flew through the dry night air. Despite the relaxing atmosphere, it was far from peaceful tonight. If one were to focus on one of the nearby shores, they would see a wooden tower with a lit bonfire at the top. One would also hear the sound of weapons clanking against one another. The battle waging was between a group of red-armored soldiers and warriors from the capital of Kase no Kuni. The armored knights were easily overpowering the country soldiers. Suddenly one of the soldiers was pushed a bit farther from the rest of his allies as the armored knight was about to slam its mace on the downed soldier when the knight was hit with several kunai. The soldier turned to see Sand Shinobi appear as they began giving aid to all the soldiers. One Sand Shinobi managed to lodge several kunai into his armored opponent, only for it to stand back up without issue. What the hell is up with this thing? Is it immortal? Asked the Sand Ninja. Suddenly the knight slammed its mace on the shinobi's head, only for the head to crumble into the sand as a puppet head came out. The puppet then opens its chest and drags the armored knight into before closing itself again. The puppet was soon surrounded by several other knights. However, that did not last long as sand erupted at the center of the ant as it turned into a sand twister that swept all the knights and began ripping them apart before dragging them all down into the sand itself. Giant Sand Burial, called out a monotone voice. From the shadows came out Konkuro as he observed the damage of the sand burial. You're late, Gaara. The puppet commented to his brother. Gaara stood up as he gazed at the armored knight. What are these men? The two brothers then noticed one shinobi with two soldiers following the retreating knights into the sea with a boat. Stop you, idiots, you don't know what's out there. Konkuro shouted to no avail. The boat continued into the darkness before it vanished from sight. For several seconds, there was dead silence as everyone waited for some cry or call to know their allies were alive. Fire the flare bombs, Gaara commanded. Hi, Gaara-sama. When the bombs launched into the sky and illuminated the sky they were all surprised a massive ship across from them. What is that? Konkuro asked in shock. Is it a battleship? One nin asked in shock. If it is, then it's unlike any I have seen, commented a country soldier. The ship then opened its side as it deployed its cannons. Gaara's eyes widened as he quickly summoned a giant wall of sand as the cannons fired several times and bombarded the wall for several minutes. When Gaara dropped the barrier, the ship was gone. Konkuro and Gaara assisted in helping the injured soldiers and shinobis that survived this attack, while also covering the bodies of the ones that sadly did not make it. This was not the first time this had happened. In fact, these types of attacks have been going on for several days. Several villages had been destroyed with hundreds of people ending up either dead or critically injured. The Wind Daimyo was understandably upset at these attacks on his people and requested Suna's help in identifying these unknown invaders. What now, Gaara? Konkuro asked. Gaara sighed as he looked at the soldiers and ninja as they picked themselves up and clear the damage down to the shore. We need to report to the village and then we need help. We'll have to make a visit to him, Gaara said. Konkuro smirked. Hey, been meaning to see the brat again, he replied. One nin looked between the two in confusion. What do you mean? Who are you going to meet, Gaara-san? Gaara turned to the ninja as he gave a rare smirk to him. An old friend. Land of Waves, a few days later. Welcome, Gaara-san, Konkuro-san. I hope you enjoy your stay, Chizuna announced cheerfully as he guided through the city to their destination. The two waved to the civilians that cheerfully greeted them. Konkuro was rather happy from all the attention, while Gaara was as stoic as always. Unfortunately, we can't stay long. We have come to see him. Is it possible to see him? Gaara bluntly asked in a polite tone. Chizuna turned to the two as he gave a slight nod. Yeah, he's been the rather busy fox. Either out in the field training or cooped up in his study trying something new with his seals. Seeing you guys should cheer him up a bit. This made the two Sand siblings pause as they looked at one another before addressing Chizuna again. Is he okay? Gaara asked in slight concern for his first friend. Chizuna waved his hand. Oh, he's fine. It's just we found a relic in his home and well, he's been obsessed with it, Konkuro finished. Chizuna scratched the back of his neck. Not exactly, but he has been on edge I guess you can say. Especially after hearing about what his village did when they heard about his death. Gaara and Konkuro faces darken as they know exactly what Chizuna was talking about. Thankfully the girls have managed to keep from going overboard. But maybe some time away can help him blow off some steam. Gaara nodded. I see. Forest near Chizuna's house. The whistling sound of a sword cutting the air could be heard as the smell ozone filled the air as electricity danced around the area. One could see Naruto as all around him were several clones that had been cut by the blades or burned due to the electricity before dispersing in smoke. Naruto sighed as he dropped onto the grassy plain as he looked at the scorch marks from his attacks along with the trees that were knocked down and the craters formed from the improved Rasengan he tested. It's been a while since his unexpected meeting with the armor of Inferno. After it spoke about waiting for him, the armor went back into its kneeled position and becoming silent once again. Naruto immediately summoned clones as they took the blades and armor out of the village and brought them back with him to wave. Ari later explained that while the armor acknowledges Naruto as its intended wielder, it still believes that Naruto is not ready for it yet. The two decided that they needed to keep this armor safe and sealed away from anyone, which everyone surprising agreed on. The last thing they needed was some psycho getting their hands on the armor. Naruto began training wielding the new blades, but Ari explained it will take some time before he can truly master the weapons. It was also a few weeks after that did they hear the reaction to Naruto and Hinata's staged death. Of course, his allies acted as they should as they mourned the loss of their hero ally while blaming Konoha for their arrogant stupidity. Konoha had a much more expected reaction. From what Naruto and his allies gathered, Konoha had one of its biggest celebrations when they heard of his death. The Hyuga elders and several members in the main branch were overjoyed to hear the demise of someone they heard as worthless. Almost all of the civilians and majority of the shinobi were partying for days on end as they celebrated the death of the demon, believing that the Yondaime could finally rest in peace. With how long they celebrated, one would assume they had won a huge war or invasion. The only silver lining was that there were some in the village that did mourn their deaths. These people included Tsunade, Jiraiya, Iruka, Hisashi, Hanabi, Ko, Natsu, several Chunin and Jonin, majority of the rookies, the Ichiraku, and the few civilians that did not hate Naruto. Other news they heard was that the civilian council in their infinite wisdom decided to revoke the Sandame's law and revealed Naruto's status to the younger generation. However, the result was not what they expected. The younger generation was angered by the lies that the adults had been filling their head for years regarding Naruto. They were told that Naruto was a dangerous demon that they shouldn't associate with him. But it was all a lie. Many of them tried to justify their actions, but none of the children wanted to hear their excuses. Now the village felt almost split between the young and older generation. Naruto smirked in vindication at the predicament that Konoha was in. However, something had changed in Naruto after hearing this. He always seems to be on edge and a lot more irritable than normal. It was like he was going to snap at anything and anyone that may push the wrong switch. Thankfully he never did, but made him worry of being around anyone and would usually train away from the others or stay cooped up in his study. Everyone was worried about him with Hinata and the other females managing to always talk to him and sedate his nerves, but this uneasiness he had never disappeared. What's worse was that Yami had been more vocal in Naruto's subconsciousness. Several nights Naruto could hear his laughs as he mocked him and causing Naruto to wake up in cold sweats from the nightmares he would induce on the blonde. He hadn't told anyone about this as he knew this was something he needed to settle himself and no one could help him but himself. Naruto sighed as took out the Raijin no Ken from his pocket. Naruto had finally managed to crack open the blade to see what made the blade tick, and what he saw was nothing short of amazing. From what he saw and understood after going over several of his parents' notes, the Raijin was formed using a special crystal and an assortment of seals. This crystal was known as a chakra crystal, a rare mineral that could absorb and conduct chakra like certain metals in the world. In fact, chakra crystals were so rare that if one could find a decent size one, they would be set for the rest of their lives. However, finding one in the elemental nations is next to impossible and could take a lifetime to even find one. The sole exception was Uzu. Uzu had a gigantic mine several feet below the village. These crystals are one of the main reasons why Uzu was so rich in mineral and sought after by the other villages. As the crystals could be used in a variety of ways to empower civilians and shinobi alike. Naruto was hoping to find some of these crystals in Uzu, but he sadly found out that all the crystals had been destroyed, with any remnants losing their power and becoming ordinary gems. The Uzumaki feared what could happen if their enemies got their hands on it and made sure it never would. While he understood the reason, that still left him rather disappointed. Those crystals could really accelerate his rebuilding of Uzu. The remaining crystals could not be recharged regardless of how much chakra Naruto poured into it. It was like it was missing a component to truly revive it. All he could do now was get the crystals to slightly glow. A nice trick, but pretty useless altogether. The crystal in the blade was also cracked, so it was pretty useless to him. All it gave him were a few sparks before blacking out again. He knew there had to be a way to revive the remaining crystals, but he sadly hasn't found the source of power he would need to do it. Not yet anyway. Naruto perked up when he heard some footsteps approaching him. He turned around and was surprised to see Gaara and Kankuro with Tazuna and most of the girls right behind them. Been a while, Naruto, Gaara said politely. Naruto nodded. Yes, it has been. Naruto shook Kankuro's hand. Good to see you took, Kankuro. What's going on? he asked. Naruto frowned as he saw the looks that the two brothers had. We need your help, Naruto. So what's going on, Gaara? Something big must have happened for you to come to me. Gaara nodded. Indeed, a few days ago, a battleship attacked one of the coasts of Kase no Kuni. Naruto tilted his head. A battleship, yes, one that has never been in the elemental nations. Our guess is they are from the continent across the seas. Gaara explained. What do you think they could be doing here? You think it's a possible invasion? He asked. An invasion from another continent was something serious and could easily lead to the elemental nations into war if not taken care of carefully. I am unsure, but we did make a disturbing discovery of how the ship was being powered, Gaara said with Kankuro shivering a bit. Naruto raised an eyebrow as it had to be something serious to get Kankuro to shake like that. Wait, how did you figure out what's fueling the ship? We managed to destroy one of the ships and drag it ashore to investigate. When we entered we found a disturbing sight. It was being powered by children being held in incubators. Naruto felt his eyes widen in horror and Tazuna along with the girls paled several shades of white. That's sick. Tazuna got out. Gaara and Kankuro nodded. Agreed. What does your village say, Gaara? Naruto asked. The council and the daimyo agree we can't allow such an attack without repercussions. My brother and I have been tasked to find out what are the goals of these invaders and if hostile to take them out. The last thing we need is for this to turn into a full-scale war with another continent. You want our help in this endeavor? Naruto asked. Gaara nodded. Yes, we shouldn't walk into this without proper backup, he said. You'll get our help without question. A resolute Naruto said. Thank you, Gaara said. Now then, who will you take this time, Naruto? Tazuna asked as Naruto looked at all his companions. Naruto hummed as he scratched his chin in thought. He turned to the girls as he knew his choice. Hinata, Seraphol, Morgiana. Ready for a mission? He asked. Yay, I get a mission with Naruto-kun. Seraphol cheered happily as everyone smirked at her reaction. Hi, Naruto-sama, Morgiana stated. Naruto sighed in amused exasperation. I told you there's no need for, sama, Morgiana. Morgiana coughed into her hand as a blush appeared on her cheeks. Force a habit, she muttered with Naruto smiling at her in amusement. Hinata, Naruto asked as he looked at his current girlfriend. I am ready when you are, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded. All right then, let's head out. Naruto quickly got to his study as he began getting all the weapons and equipment he will need. He paused as he turned to see Ari seeing him. Naruto, are you alright? Yeah, I have been itching to go on a mission, Naruto said as he got back to his packing. However, Ari noticed how forced he sounded when he that. Ari slowly approached Naruto as she brought him into a hug. She felt him stiffen before relaxing into her embrace. That's not what I meant, Kit. Naruto remained quiet as she continued. Ever since the incident with the Inferno armor and finding out how Konoha reacted to your death, you have been different. You seem on edge all the time. It's like you're about to snap. She turned his body so that he was looking straight at her. Naruto, what's wrong? Naruto grimaced as he struggled to find the right words to explain it. I don't know. He finally said. You're right, I have been off. Ever since hearing how they celebrated our deaths, something in me has changed. I have been feeling frustrated most of the time. I feel like there's something boiling in me. But whenever I get close I get this migraine and I have to stop before my head explodes. Then I hear Yami in my head, laughing at me, as if he enjoys my torment. I don't know what's wrong with me, he said as he looked down. Between his irritation and Yami's taunts, he really had to wonder if something was wrong with him. Naruto felt his head lift up as he looked up to see Eri's soft gaze. Naruto, there's nothing wrong with you. You have been through so much as a child and even now. It's understandable that you hold some resentment for Konoha. Regardless of how you feel, it was still your home. So their celebrations would affect you negatively. Naruto sighed. I just don't know what to do. You just need to find a way to release all that pent-up emotion. Maybe you'll get the chance in this mission. That way you'll be more level-headed. Ari suggested. He nodded. Thank you. Ari then moved her hand to the back of her obi as she brought something out. It was the mask that Naruto wore when he took on his Menma persona. He looked up with questioning gaze. New and improved, should be able to take a beating and now gives you red highlights in your hair, so you can show off your Uzumaki roots. Ari explained. Naruto nodded in thanks, but before he can put it on, Ari grabbed his arm and pressed her lips onto his. Ari, desiring more, shoved her tongue into Naruto's mouth as he moaned at the pleasure he felt. The two traded spit as their tongues swirled around the other for several minutes before separating for some air. Ari gave him a smirk as he gave Naruto one last quick peck on the lips. Good luck. Now get going. Naruto blushed as he put the mask on as his hair turned black with red highlights. Hi. Sometime later in a shore in Kase no Kuni. Damn, You really did not hold back, Gaara. Naruto whistled in an impressed tone as they looked at the remains of one of the battleships. Kankuro pointing at someone approaching the wreckage. Look, he said. They all crouched down to see a man in silver armor walking towards the warship. Who is that? Serafal asked. Probably someone from the enemy side. He's wearing armor similar to the invaders. Gaara replied. This got more complicated, Hinata said. Everyone turned to her. Why? Serafal asked. Hinata pointed at someone approaching. Look. Everyone turned to see someone following the White Knight. Someone Naruto, Hinata, Gaara, and Kankuro recognized. That's Kiba, Naruto said. A Konoha shinobi, Serafal asked in confusion. What is he doing all the way out here? Kankuro asked. And why is following the guy in the suit of armor? Morgiana asked in a suspicious tone. Serafal turned to her secret crush. Naruto, what do we do? Naruto wondered if this Silver Knight was meeting up with allies or looking for survivors. Hinata, what do you see? He asked. Hinata, activated by Hyuga, has observed the interior of the shipwreck. I see there are 2 more people in the ship, but there's something off with them. What do you mean? Are they using some odd form of chakra? Naruto asked. That's just it. I don't believe they even have chakra, let alone a chakra network. I see they have some kind of energy coming off the left side of their hearts. The same with the Silver Knight. Naruto scratched his chin in thought. I wonder if this is how the people on another continent fight. Naruto, do you think they use magic? Serafal asked through their telepathic link. No, this doesn't sound like magic. Though I could be wrong. Regardless, we'll find out once we confront them. What do we do with Kiba? Hinata asked. Naruto sighed as he did not want to deal with anyone from Konoha. Kiba is not our priority. We need to what the Silver Knight knows about this. Hinata stays here for reconnaissance with Serafal. Morgiana goes with Gaara. Kankuro, you're with me. Now let's go. Hey, wait the hell up, Temujin, Kiba called out to the Silver Knight. The now named Temujin stayed silent as he entered the shipwreck. As Kiba entered the ship, he was shocked at the bodies that littered the floor of the wreckage. The most disturbing thing was that the bodies seemed to have been in some kind of pods. What the hell is this? Oi, what is all this, Temujin? Kiba demanded. Temujin stayed quiet as turned back to look at Kiba. Suddenly a puppet came down and wrapped around Temujin. What the? Black Ant? Kiba shouted in shock as he recognized the puppet easily. Caught you, bastard. The two turned to see Kankuro coming out of the shadows. Kankuro. Kiba shouted in shock as he hadn't seen the ninja in months. Suddenly Naruto appeared in front of Temujin with a kunai pointed at his throat. Now you will tell what we want to know, Naruto ordered. Who the hell are you? Kiba questioned. Naruto didn't even spare him a glance. That is not your concern, Konoha shinobi. Stay out of this. We have business with this man and his allies. What the hell are you talking about? Kiba shouted in frustration. Kiba, this bastard and his allies attacked Kase no Kuni and killed several soldiers and Suna shinobi, Kankuro explained. What? Kiba shouted in shock. I see. So that is what happened. Temujin muttered. You mind telling us why you attacked the hidden sand and are using these kids as a fuel supply? Naruto questioned as he kept his eyes on the knight. To achieve our goal of creating a utopia. I have told you this, Kiba-san. A utopia? Kankuro asked in a suspicious tone. Naruto's eyes narrowed under the mask. Don't spew that bullshit on us. What about the people that died for this so-called ideal? And what about the people in those pods? Naruto demanded. All are necessary sacrifices to achieve a utopia, Temujin replied, much to the other three's ire. You bastard, Kiba growled. Suddenly Temujin began releasing a light green aura. Black Ant was pushed off Temujin from the shockwave of him releasing his power. What the? They all shouted in shock. Well, bring it on, Naruto said as he got ready to fight Temujin. However, all of them stopped when they heard someone call to Temujin. They turned to see 2 females in similar armor to Temujin. You baka, Temujin, you're supposed to be a scout, said the first female. That caravan you were with had information on the Stone of Gelul, the second one said. What? Temujin began, but was interrupted by the first female again. Yeesh, what are you getting so worked up for? We're getting out of here before it becomes too troublesome, said the second female. Suddenly 2 walls of sand burst from either side in an attempt to crush them, but they easily dodged the sand walls. Looks like we'll have some fun, the second one said as Gaara appeared from the shadows. You won't escape, he said. Attack, Morgiana muttered as she rushed them, but both disappeared into deeper parts of the wreckage. You won't escape, Morgiana said as she and Gaara went after them. Kankuro, go after the other one, I'll handle Temujin, Naruto said. Kankuro nodded. Give them hell, Menma. Naruto nodded as he refocused on Temujin. Kiba then got between the two. Look, I have questions that he will answer, so stay ga. Kiba gasped as Naruto slammed a punch into his gut. I told you, this does not concern you, Konoha Shinobi, Naruto warned as he sent Kiba flying with a roundhouse kick into the wall of the wreckage. Bastard, Kiba muttered. Naruto turns his attention to his opponent. Temujin unsheaths a small blade before it extends into a more appropriate sword length as Naruto unseals the Kiba blades as they cackled with electricity. You will not stand in our way, Temujin warned. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Then prepare yourself, the masked blonde declared. The two charged at one another as their blades collided together. Electricity and green energy flew in multiple directions as the two warriors fought for dominance. However, the two, for the most part, were dead even. Temujin quickly jumped back as he raised his blade into the air. The odd pale green energy swirled around the blade as it turned into torrent winds. Raging tornado, Temujin shouted as a tornado of energy was released from his blade. Raiden. Thunderstrike. Naruto retaliated as he retaliated with a giant blast of lightning. The two attacks collided as a giant whirlwind of green energy and blue electricity rippled across their arena, with both crossing their arms as they withstood the shockwaves of their attacks. Naruto quickly dashed as he charged his blades with lightning chakra once more. Temujin got his bearings as he charged his blade once more with the strange green energy. Temujin slashed the air in front of him as an arc of energy flew from the blade. Naruto quickly jumped over the attack as he dashed toward Temujin and once more raised his blades over his blade. Raiden. Thunderstrike. Naruto roared as Temujin countered with his blade coated in the green energy once more. This collision was far more powerful than the last as the shockwaves ripped across the arena as the remnants of the destroyed ship were sent flying in every direction. Menma-kun, Seraphol shouted in concern. She was about to jump in when her wrist was caught by Hinata as she already activated her Byakugan under her illusion to find Naruto. Calm down, Sarah-chan. It will take more than that for Naruto to fall. Remember, we need to remain hidden until we are needed. Seraphol paused before sighing and getting back down. Sorry, she said. Hinata brought Seraphol into a one-arm hug. It's okay. He is okay. Seraphol nodded. Can you find them? Hinata used her Byakugan to see through the smoke as she saw several energy signatures moving about. However, she quickly noticed the two largest moving out of the dust cloud. Over there, two figures jumped out of the smoke as they revealed to be Temujin and Naruto, both with little injuries but dust and scrap on their persons from the collapsed battleship. The two landed on the sandy shore as they circled one another. You will answer for your crimes, Naruto warned. No one will stand in the way of my master's objective, Temujin replied. Hey, stop right there. A voice shouted. Both took a glance to see Kiba rushing towards them. Naruto had to resist the urge to groan in annoyance at Kiba's unnecessary appearance. He should have hit the mudboy harder. Seraphol. Hinata. Keep that idiot away. Hi. Kiba was about to shout again as a disguised Hinata and Seraphol appeared in front of him. Stay where you are, Konoha Shinobi, Seraphol ordered. What? Who the hell are you supposed to be? None of your concern. Do not interfere in Menma-kun's fight. Seraphol warned. Kiba scoffed. Yeah, well, your bastard leader knocked me out for no reason. You were getting in his way. He was saving you from possible death. Hinata replied. I need to talk to Temujin about his so-called utopia. You will get your answers once Menma-kun has subdued him and gotten answers for Gaara-san on why they attacked. You will not escape, Naruto shouted as he jumped into the air as lightning crackled around the blades. Temujin charged his blade with his own energy. Hinata felt her eyes widen as she felt the power between the two. We need to go before we get caught up in the collision, Hinata warned as Seraphol nodded. Agreed. Hey, we are not done. Hey. Kiba started before Seraphol grabbed him by the collar. Move it unless you want to possibly die. Raiden. Thunderblast. Raging thunder. The two collided in their biggest explosion yet as sand flew every from the shockwave of the two attacks. Holy shit, Menma-kun, Hinata and Seraphol muttered. When the dust cleared, the two warriors were in a deadlock as Naruto crossed his blades in front of him to parry Temujin's overhead strike. Naruto moved his right arm as he threw his right blade into the air. Temujin was left stunned, which left him open for Naruto to grab him by his arm and pulled him forward and deliver a fierce roundhouse kick that sent Temujin skidding back a few feet. Temujin grunted as he looked up to see Naruto capture his blade again and ready for another round. The two were about to engage in another fight when they heard an explosion. They turned to see one of Temujin's allies in monstrous form as Morgiana and Gaara faced her off. Morgiana jumped into the air as Gaara used her own electricity against her. Morgiana reared her fist back as she charged it with chakra while Gaara added sand to boost the strength behind the attack. Crushing sand fist, Morgiana shouted as she slammed her fist into her enemy's head as she was easily ripped apart in an explosion of blood and electricity. There goes one of your allies. Ready to surrender. Temujin glared at Naruto and would have retorted when his other ally shouted at him, Temujin. Retreat. We regroup to find what we're looking for. Temujin quickly nodded as he dashed towards her. No, You don't, Naruto shouted as he raced after him. However, he was too late as Temujin jumped to be grabbed by his ally, who transformed into a bat monster and flew away. Damn, they got away, Kankuro swore as he stood by Naruto's side. Don't worry, we won't lose them for long, Naruto replied. How so? Naruto revealed on his palm was a tracking seal with a projection showing a red dot moving at incredible speeds. We know where they are going, Naruto said as Kankuro gave a smirk. Naruto, Morgiana called. What is it? He asked. I found a strange object in the woman myself and Gaara was fighting. What does it look like? A blue gemstone, but I can feel a lot of power coming from it. Seraphal feels there's something more to this stone. That may be the source of the power Hinata felt. What do we do with it? What do we do with this mud as my patience is waning with his constant nagging? Hide it, Morgiana. As for Kiba, just endure for now, as we have our next destination and we'll have to deal with him following us whether we like it or not. Understood. Let's go. Something tells me this caravan is more than meets the eye, especially if these guys are going after them, Naruto said as he regrouped with the others and began heading after Temujin. Several hours later in a valley, Temujin was gazing at the destroyed remains of the caravan he traveled with for a short period of time before. As he bent down to inspect some of the remains, but suddenly felt his body jerk to a halt. What? I can't move, Temujin said in shock. Hello, we've been waiting for you. We got some questions that we would like you to answer. Temujin was forced to slowly turn to see another shinobi walking towards him. He recognized him from his first encounter with Kiba. Now Nara. Temujin turned his eyes as a fist slammed into his face as everything went dark. Naruto looked down at his unconscious opponent. That's what you get for running from our fight, you bastard, he growled. Naruto turned to see Shikamaru staring at him. Who are you? He asked. My name is Menma. I was hired by Suna to help them with these invaders. Why are you here, Konoha shinobi? Shikamaru sighed. My name is Shikamaru. My team was supposed to return a lost ferret to this caravan before we got dragged into this mess. So troublesome. Naruto merely sweat drops at his response. You still haven't changed a bit, Shikamaru. Shikamaru. The shadow user turns to see Kiba rushing towards him. Kiba, where the hell have you been? He shouted in an irate tone. Hey, I was following this suspicious bastard. Kiba retorted as he pointed a finger at Temujin and then at Naruto. How's Akamaru? Kiba asked in concern for his partner. He's fine. He is with the survivors in a hideout they made for themselves. Shikamaru explained as Kiba sighed in relief. Thank goodness. We should bring him in for questioning. Naruto spoke up as Gaara, Kankuro, Hinata, Seraphal, and Morgiana landed next to him. Agreed, Shikamaru said as they walked to a cave, while Naruto carried Temujin. When they reached the entrance they saw Shikamaru's other teammate. Why did it have to be her? Naruto groaned at who was waiting for them. It was Sakura Haruno, Naruto-kun. All three girls said in concern. Naruto sighed before looking at the girls. Relax, she means nothing and I refuse to let her ruin anything. Shikamaru. Kiba. Wait, who are these guys? Sakura asked as she looked at the four mysterious shinobi and the one unconscious knight being brought into the cave. We hired them to assist us, Gaara explained. Sakura looked more confused. Why did you not just call us? We are allies, Sakura said. Gaara glared at the Pinkett. Our alliance is nothing more than a formality, he growled out. Sakura's eyes narrowed. Is this still about Naruto? Why can't you guys get over that, losers? Sakura could not finish her sentence as she was bombarded with a potent amount of Ki from Gaara as he glared at her. Speak your next words carefully, Haruno. They may be your last. The sand user warned. Enough, Sakura. Stand down. The last thing the village needs is a war with Suna because one genin could not keep her mouth shut. Shikamaru warned as he did not need a conflict to start between Konoha and Suna due to one insult. Everyone turned when they heard laughing from Menma. I wonder if the rest of Konoha's ilk are like her. Loud, obnoxious, and annoying. Naruto got out from his laughter. What was that? Sakura asked as she glared at him. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. You heard me, didn't you? Or are you hard of hearing as well? He asked. Sakura looked enraged at that as she began walking towards him. Why you? Before Shikamaru got in front of her. Sakura, stop. You are as Naruto described, Naruto said as that got everyone to look at him. How do you Naruto? Shikamaru asked with narrowed eyes. I met the young lad and his lady friend before their untimely death. I was quite saddened to hear of their demise. But that sadness was eclipsed by the sheer anger and disgust I felt towards your village as a whole. Naruto said in a dark tone as Kiba and Sakura slightly flinched at his tone. Were you the one that killed him? Shikamaru asked in a dark tone. Why do you ask? Are you glad he's dead? Naruto asked before he felt himself being lifted by the collar as he looked at the cold glare from Shikamaru. Listen to me, you bastard. Never say that to me again. Naruto was my friend. He stuck out for me so many times than I could count. No matter what, I could always count on him. Yet I could do nothing for him when he needed help the most. The two continued to look at one another for several seconds as everyone tensely watched them. Perhaps you would one of the few that deserve mercy in the future, Shikamaru. I merely helped them, nothing more, Naruto finally said. Why would you help them? Shikamaru said in a confused tone. Because I saw their memories. Every last one. I must say I have never more disgusted in my life for a single village until now. A village that shouts about honoring their heroes, but spitting on the wishes of their hero's last request. It's miracle he did not snap until now. Shikamaru and Kiba looked down in shame. We didn't know anything, Kiba said. Naruto sighed as he shook his head. That was due to the lousy work of your Sandame. All three Konoha shinobi looked up to glare at him for that remark. Don't insult the Sandame. He was a great man and a great leader. Sakura warned. Perhaps, once upon a time, he was. But he lost that fire once Naruto was born. He let the civilian get more power. He bowed to their wills without any fight. He barely did anything to help Naruto to give him any sense of normality, and students is just as useless as him. What do you mean? Kiba asked. That fool Jiraiya focuses only on his porn books, instead of properly training his student. And he has the nerve to say it's to toughen him up and to get him to act like a real shinobi. What utter nonsense. He was just looking for ways to peep on women and focusing on training his student. Tsunade is just as bad. A useless drunk that bowed to the council like a pathetic submissive bitch. Hey, don't you dare insult Tsunade-sama, you free, Sakura began to shout before. Slam. Crack. Sakura and everyone was silent as they looked at the head-size hole just a few feet from Sakura's head and the fist that impacted the wall. Keep quiet. Your voice is too loud. Morgiana warned coldly. Sakura looked even more enraged. Who the hell? However, before Naruto grabbed her by the throat and hoisted her into the air. Kill her, Hikari. This is our chance. Make her suffer. Naruto growled as he ignored the shouting of Yami in his head. I could care less if you insult me. But don't ever try to threaten my family again. Are we clear? Naruto warned as he gave her throat a tight squeeze. Sakura nodded frantically as Naruto let her go as she fell to the ground as she coughed multiple times to get air back into her body normally. Everyone. The shinobi turned to see Amina, the granddaughter of Kahiko, the leader of the caravan. Temujin has woken up. Menma nodded as turned to everyone else. Let's go. We are not finished, Menma, Shikamaru said. For now. Yes, we are. Now come on. We need to get answers. Naruto replied back. Everyone now surrounded a tied-up Temujin. All right, Temujin, start talking. Menma demanded. I have nothing to say to any of you, he replied. You bastard, Kiba growled with Akamaru barking as well. Please wait. Everyone turned to see Kahiko walking forward. I wish to speak to him. The others looked at one another before nodding. Kahiko sighed as he sat down to Temujin's side. I never expected that you of all people would have knowledge on the Gello stones, Temujin said as he looked at Kahiko. Why do you seek the Gello stones? Kahiko demanded. They are a necessary tool for completing our objectives. Kahiko's eyes narrowed. Then your objective is a lost cause. All the stones do is bring misfortune and destruction to those that seek its power. Temujin chuckled as he looked at the old man. How amusing. Is this supposed to be a lecture? He asked. Suddenly the left side of Temujin's chest began to glow as it projected the image of a bluish-green crystal. What is that? Naruto asked. That is a Gello crystal. The source of life energy. Kahiko said. That explains the weird energy. Naruto and his allies thought. That explains your incredible recovery abilities. Where do you get this? Kahiko asked. I received it from Hato-sama, Temujin replied. Kahiko closed his eyes as he nodded. I see. Tell me, is that all you received from this Hato? Temujin looked at Kahiko in confusion. What do you mean? He asked. How odd. As you are descendant from the same clan like us, you should be well versed on the Gello stones. Or was the Book of Gello also lost when you crossed the seas to this continent? What in the world are you talking about? Temujin asked in confusion. Don't you find it strange that only certain individuals can place Gello stones within their bodies? Only members of our clan are able to imbue Gello stones into their bodies. Specifically, only members of the royal family could do this. Kiba-san, I told you a bit about how our clan across the sea after our home was destroyed, remember? Kahiko explained. Kiba blinked a few times. Now that you mention it, according to our records, the royal family of our clan sailed across the seas to this continent with the stone and the Book of Gello, Kahiko explained. Temujin, you have not come. You have returned to your clan. Your family. Suddenly two men walked forward. The first was a man that looked to be in his late 40s and shaggy black hair with golden bangs. The second was a young man that looked to be in his late 20s and had dark green hair slicked back. "We can take it from here," the middle-aged man said. Kahiko looked at the two before nodding. "Very well," he said. "Who are you two?" Naruto asked. "My name is Azazel. My green-haired friend here is Ajuka," explained the middle-aged man known as Azazel. "Both of us are from the Astaroth clan that also came from the continent across the seas and lived in coexistence with their clan. It was these two clans that found the Stone of Gelul. This dates back thousands of years. Our ancestors do not the origin of the stone. Some said it had fallen from the heavens themselves. Others believed it was a gift from the gods themselves. However, what we do know is that our ancestors found the mines that contained the stones and began to cultivate them. They found a way to refine the stones into a crystallized form and named the crystallized form Gelul. They created a great empire that was made on the foundation of the Gelul stones." Azazel explained. "With the stones, our ancestors could perform incredible feats. Some called them miracles, others called it magic." Ajuka continued with Naruto's and his team's eyes widening in shock. "Why am I not surprised?" Naruto mentally groaned. "Great magical stones. Our wells and water reserves never dried up. Livestock flourished in one night. Our gardens continuously produced healthy and plentiful plants and vegetables. There were even members that tried to apply the power of the stone in other ways. Adding the crystals to objects to allow them to float and fly for transportation, medical purposes to heal severe wounds. Most ambitious of all was to slow if not stop aging completely and become immortals." Ajuka explained. "Sounds too good to be true," Shikamaru said in a suspicious tone. Kahiko sighed. "Sadly it was. With great power comes great catastrophe," he said as continued the story. "Our ancestors began to fight against one another disgracefully in order to have the power of the stones for themselves. In the end, a civil war erupted between our people as they used the power of the stones against one another. The earth was split apart, mountains fell apart, buildings crumbled, lives were lost. Our once prosperous empire was no more." "How terrible," Sakura said. "What happened afterward?" Naruto asked. "By some miracle, there were survivors from the horrific battle. They decided that the power of the stone was too dangerous and decided to seal away deep underground. They swore that the Gelul stone would never see the light of day again." Kahiko explained. "Wait, why didn't you just destroy the stones and be done with them for good?" Naruto asked in a confused tone. "It's because we are unable to. Only someone of the royal bloodline can destroy the stone. Without a method to destroy the stone, we hoped by closing off the stones, they would fade from history with the sands of time." Kahiko explained. However, Kahiko and the others frowned when they heard Temujin began chuckling. "Destroy, fade, you're very mistaken, old man. Your story has motivated me even more to get the stones. You bastard, did you not hear what he just said? Those stones' power is too dangerous." Hyuga growled at the tied-up knight. "Power is power. What matters is who wields that power. The Gelule stones are a power that should not be in the hands of humans. One person cannot hold that power," Kahiko warned. "Hado-sama will know what to do with this power," Temujin said in a resolute tone. "He once told me that war brings nothing more than war and misfortune to everyone involved. Wars cannot be stopped unless there is someone at the top to lead people on the right path." Those words moved me. I truly believed them. My village had been ravaged by thieves and they left me and several others as orphans. Hado-sama took us in and told of his plan. My friends gave their bodies up for that cause. That is why I must have the Stone of Gelul to accomplish my goal." Temujin suddenly glowed as ripped apart the bindings that were holding him. "What the hell?" everyone shouted. "He was faking it," Hyuga exclaimed. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "He broke through my paralysis seals. That power of the Gelul is not to be underestimated." Temujin suddenly jumped into the air as he put Kahiko in a headlock and placed a blade next to his throat. "Let the old man go, Temujin," Naruto warned. Temujin ignored this as he addressed Kahiko. "Tell me where the Gelul stone is," he demanded. "Never," Kahiko replied. Temujin simply sighed. "How unfortunate." Temujin suddenly chopped the back of Kahiko's neck and knocking him out. He then threw something in the ground as everyone was blinded by a bright flash. "What the hell?" Hyuga exclaimed. When everyone regained their sight, Temujin was gone along with one of the children as well. "He's escaped again," Shikamaru said. "He won't be for long," Naruto said. At Shikamaru's questioning glance, he showed the seal on his palm. "You have a tracker on him," Shikamaru stated. Naruto nodded. "He won't get far. Now let's go." As Naruto, his team, Shikamaru and his team, and Gaara and his siblings were about to leave when... Wait. They turned to see Azazel and Ajuka walking forward. "Take us with you," Ajuka said. Naruto shook his head. "Sorry, but it's too dangerous for civilians." "We're not helpless," Azazel protested. Plus you'll need someone to guide you through the mines to the stone, as it was built like a maze to keep intruders out. Not even your track may be able to help you. Hyuga said. Naruto sighed as he looked to see everyone else shrugging their shoulders. Alright, let's go. Who made you in charge? Kiba said in a stubborn turn before Shikamaru elbowed his arm. Forget it, Kiba. He's the one with the tracker and this is too big for us alone. We need all the help we can get. Fine, whatever, Kiba muttered, as the group began walking out when Narugui climbed on top of Naruto's shoulder. Naruto turned in surprise as the ferret on his shoulder. You're coming as well, Narugui? He asked as the ferret nodded. Alright, let's go. Meanwhile at the edge of another valley. So this it? Temujin asked as he looked down at the valley covered in mist. He could see a structure near the center of the valley. Temujin took the child and the steed he took and set them back to the caravan. Gomen for treating you so roughly. Now go back, quickly, he commanded as they went on their way. Temujin then raised his blade into the air as glowed before firing a beam into the air as it changed directions and went off into the distant horizon. Let's go, Temujin ordered. Not like I have a choice, Kahiko muttered. Several miles away, Hado-sama, we have a signal from Temujin, Kimura said. I knew the boy would not fail me. Now then, let's move out. Hi. His two knights shouted as Hado continued to have his wide grin as he looked at the horizon. Back with Temujin. So this it? Temujin muttered as he looked at the stone platform he was standing on. Follow me, Kahiko said. Hold, someone shouted. The two turned to see Naruto and Kiba appearing a few feet across from them. Menma-san, Kiba, Kahiko said, you're getting in my way. Temujin shouted as he drew his sword. However, before they could start fighting, the entire area began to shake uncontrollably. Then a huge wall next to everyone collapsed as a giant fortress crashed into the chamber. What the hell? Kiba shouted in shock. Naruto and the others looked at the structure with narrowed eyes. Looks like the big bad has arrived. Suddenly a hatch began to open as a middle-aged man in light blue religious clothes walked out along with two more knights and two night drones that Gaara talked about. Temujin went to one knee as he bowed to the man. Hado-sama, the Gelel mine is right beneath our feet. This man can help us into the mine, he explained. Excellent job, Temujin. I knew I could always count on you. Hado said. Thank you for the kind words, Hado-sama. Hado nodded as turned around. Now then, let's. However, before he could continue he was frozen in place. Hold it right there, Shikamaru called out. Hado turned to look at the shadow user. We have some questions that need answering. Hado-sama. The knight, Kimura said. Relax. What rude youngsters. Are these your friend Kiba? Hado asked. Kiba glared at the man as Akamaru growled in anger. I thought we had an understanding, Kiba. You said you speak with your Hokage about allying with our cause to create a utopia in the elemental nations and all other lands in this continent. Grr, Kiba growled. Sorry, but my friend likes to open his mouth a lot without speaking, Shikamaru replied. I have a question for you, Hado. Naruto finally spoke up. Hado turned to him with a raised eyebrow. Oh, and what would that be? He asked. What do you plan to do with the stone of Gelel once you obtain it? He asked. Why didn't Kiba tell you? Temujin, I wish to create a utopia. I imagine a world without war, where the weak are not oppressed. Everyone is treated equally and fairly. No discrimination, no ill will. I wish to bring world peace to everyone. Hado explained. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Then tell me, where will you be? He asked. Why at the very top leading this utopia? Tell me, you speak of a utopia, then why did you attack the villages in Kase no Kuni and the caravan? Instead of utopia, you are brewing a possible war. Naruto growled out. Noble sacrifices for a common goal, Hado said without any hesitation. Noble sacrifices, is that what you call when you toss your followers and friends to their deaths or putting them in pods to suck away their energy? Naruto demanded. That was their wish, to be of some help to achieve a utopia. What better way to honor their sacrifices? Hado said. He looked at Naruto's posture and could tell he was angry. Is that wrong? He asked. Your ideal may sound great and all, but I can tell just how twisted you truly are inside, Naruto stated. Before Hado could say anything, the platform Temujin and Kahiko were standing on, separated from the walkway it was connected to. What? They all shouted. What are you doing? Naruto asked. The stone of Gelel is something that should not exist anymore. It must be destroyed, Kahiko said as the stone platform began going down a large tunnel and closed behind the two. Destroyed, everyone shouted. That fucking idiot old man, Naruto swore. Eliminate the stone, Hado said as he took out a book and began going through several pages. How could he do this? He asked out loud in desperation. Naruto had a good idea of what that book was. Where did you get that book? He demanded, but Hado ignored it as he shouted in anger and threw the book to the ground. Damn it, what could that old man know? Hato said as he flew to the walkway and began to walk to the tunnel past Naruto and Kiba. Kiba quickly got Akamaru into his clone form and shouted, "Hold it, old man." Gatsuga, Kiba roared as he and his partner turned into two twisters heading towards Hato. However, the man merely raised his hand as it glowed for a few seconds as he backhanded the two twisters with ease. "Gah!" Kiba shouted as he slammed into the wall. Kiba, Shikamaru and Sakura shouted. Hato was about to backhand Naruto as well, but Naruto caught it as the two stared at one another. "You're going to have to try harder." Hato fires a blast, but Naruto manages to dodge thanks to his Sharingan to help see the attack. However, Naruto is in shock when Hato suddenly disappears and reappears right behind him. How did he do that? Is this the power of the Stone of Gelul? I have no time to play with you. Naruto is sent flying but manages to skid himself to a halt. However, Hato had already jumped in and destroyed the stone platform and plummeted downwards with two armored guards following him. "Oh no, you don't." Naruto growled as he raced after Hato and the others. However, as Naruto went through it, the opening was closed once again. "Menma," Shikamaru shouted. "Hold it." A voice said. Shikamaru turned to see Chimera in her bat form. "Not so fast, boy. You will play for me for now." Suddenly the entire structure shook as sand covered the Hato's fortress as it began pushing it out of the structure. "Nice, Gaara. Keep at it," Kankuro encouraged. "This is not as easy as it looks," Gaara muttered in annoyance. Meanwhile with Temujin and Kahiko. "Here we are," Kahiko announced. "This is the first time I have been here. Yet it all feels familiar." Temujin said in wonder. "This chamber was created by our ancestors, and then sealed away." Temujin continued to look through the different murals plastered all over the chamber. However, he paused to look at a mural that was completely black. Why is this mural different from the rest? Perhaps a depiction of eternal despair. The rest tell the rise and fall of our former empire. Kahiko explained. "How promising. I wonder if I can find out more from these depictions." Temujin said in an excited tone. "Are you not terrified at what these depictions foretell? All that power brews is destruction. The stone will only bring destruction to the world." Kahiko warned. "Power is just power. Even without the Stone of Gelul, people will always bring harm to one another. War will rise, regardless of Gelul's existence. However, with the right person, it can bring change to the world." Temujin retorted. "So you are dead set on this path then? I have no choice," Kahiko said as he took out a hidden dagger. "Prepare to die with me," Kahiko shouted as Temujin turned to him in shock. Meanwhile back on top. "Come, boy, let's have some fun," Chimera taunted. Shikamaru smirked. "I got you now," he said. She mused as she looked at all the ninja wire covering the area with paper bomb notes on each wire. "You think I am trapped by these bombs? Silly boy, all I need to do is maneuver in the right path and I can escape this." Shikamaru gave her a smirk. "I was hoping for that," he said as Black Ant appeared behind her. "What?" Chimera shouted as blades went through the chest of the puppet. "Gah," were the last sounds Chimera said before everything went silent. Shikamaru turned to the puppet user. "Thanks for the backup, Kankuro." "No problem. Now we better be careful and set one of these off," Kankuro said as he looked at all the paper notes around them. "Oh, don't worry, most of these are just useless paper notes," Shikamaru casually replied. "Damn, are you one crazy bastard," Kankuro said. The two walked back to the main area they were in when they heard, "Gah." They looked at one another before rushing in to see the other knight, Fugai, trapped in a giant block of ice. "Damn," Shikamaru muttered. "Not bad," Kankuro said. "Alright, let's get out and help Gaara get rid of this thing," Serafal stated as she, Hinata, and Kankuro began walking out. "What about Menma?" Shikamaru asked. While he was suspicious of the ninja, that did not mean he did not want to help him take care of that madman Hato. "Don't worry about Menma-kun. He can handle Hato," Serafal said casually with Hinata nodding. "What if Hato starts using a Gelul crystal?" Shikamaru asked. Serafal and Hinata turned to one another before they turned back to him. "Then Menma will use his true power." Back with Temujin and Kahiko. "You fool, did you actually for that to work?" Temujin ridiculed. "I did what I had to do," Kahiko said as his small dagger was covered in Temujin's blood. "Did you know what this is?" Kahiko asked as walked towards a sealing sigil at the center of the chamber. "It's an ancient sealing formula used to destroy the stone if ever necessary. But the blood of the royal family was needed." Kahiko then raised his knife into the air. "With this, I will destroy the stone," Kahiko shouted as he was about to bring the knife down when something blasted it out of his hands. "Gah," Kahiko grunted in pain. "Hato-sama," Temujin exclaimed. "Good work, Temujin," Hato praised. "Hato-sama, that was," Hato smirked as he showed a familiar stone on the back of his black glove. "A Gelul stone," Temujin muttered in surprise. "Such incredible power. I can just point my arm and blow anything in the sight of my attack. Just like the book described. Hato said out loud. Book? Do you mean the Book of Gelul? Kahiko demanded. Excuse me, Hato said in fake confusion. Where did you get that book? Kahiko demanded. It's not what you think. I simply got it off a traveling merchant. Hato explained with a giant fake smile on his lips. Cut that bullshit. You got that book after attacking Temujin's village, didn't you? Kahiko accused. Temujin asked in confusion as he looked between the two. Now why would I do that? Why would do something so terrible when I proclaim I wish to proclaim a utopia? You speak of peace, but you're rotten to the core, Kahiko stated. Hato ignored him as he looked around before he spotted something near one of the murals. It was several silver cylinders. Oh, is this the control panel? Hato asked himself. Stay away from that, it's not for you, Kahiko shouted as Naragui came from one of the small openings and charged at Hato. Hato merely waves his hand and sent the ferret flying back with a blast from his stone. Naragui, Kahiko shouted as he rushed to his longtime companion. He kneeled down and crawled the wounded ferret. Naragui, he said softly. Oh, it had a stone in its mouth. It must have lived for centuries. Hato commented as Kahiko glared at him. You'll pay for this, Kahiko warned as Hato merely sighed in annoyance. What an eyesore. Die, Hato shouted and blasted the older man away. Arg, Kahiko shouted in pain as he skidded across the floor of the chamber. Now to end this, Hato began before Temujin got in front of him. What are you doing, Temujin? He asked as Temujin bowed to the man. Forgive me, Hato-sama. But I don't believe we need to kill a harmless old man to achieve our objectives. I ask that we spare him. Temujin requested, hoping to reason with his leader. Move, Temujin. Temujin looked up in shock. He asked. Did you not hear? Move. Hato repeated as he saw the insane look in his eyes. Suddenly the chamber rumbled as the entrance exploded. Everyone turned to see a familiar masked shinobi coming out of the shadows. Menma, Kahiko shouted in joy. Oh, it's you, Hato said in a bored tone. He tried to blast Naruto again, but Naruto managed to dodge all his attacks. I still can't control it properly, Hato said as he looked down at his stone. Menma, please stop him. I beg of you, Kahiko pleaded as he nodded. Right, he said. Temujin, take care of them, Hato ordered, but Temujin was completely quiet. Temujin, he repeated, but Temujin was having flashbacks to the day his home was raided and the man that led them. A man that a grin similar to the one Hato currently had. What a pitiful child, he said. That's not possible, he said in shock as he connected the dots. Hato soon began to laugh maniacally. Ha 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 ha, guess it's over. Yes, I was the one to invade your village and kill everyone there including your parents. I needed someone to get me to the stones, so I kept you alive to achieve my goal. And the best part was how you clung on to me so much. What an amusing pawn, Hato said as he began to transform with his upper clothes being apart as his upper body became a dark gray along with hair and his eyes became blood red. Hato suddenly disappeared as he grabbed Temujin by his collar as he raised him up into the air. Now that I have the mind, your usefulness has reached its end, he said. Hato-sama, Temujin muttered weakly. Useless boy, die, Hato said as he was about to pierce Temujin where his stone was located, but his arm was caught by something. He asked himself as turned to see Naruto holding his arm. What are you doing? He followed you faithfully and this how you repay him, Naruto growled out. So what? He was a means to an end. Nothing more, nothing less. That's all children and soldiers are. Pawns you move around for achieving your objective, Hato said without a shred of remorse. Hato was then slugged in the face. He was sent flying a few feet before landing back on his feet. He looked up to see Naruto covered in a black and blue aura as lightning danced around his body. What kind of power is that? He asked curiously. You bastard, you're just like them, Naruto said aloud. Hato blinked in confusion. Who? You're not leaving here alive with the stones, Naruto said while Hato laughed in amusement. We'll see the boy, he said. The two dashed forward as they reared their fists back before swinging. The two collided as they caused several shockwaves to rip through the chamber. Naruto tried to launch a roundhouse kick, but Hato blocked it with his forearm. Hato quickly grabbed the leg as he began spinning Naruto in circles before hurling the disguised blonde into a stone pillar. Menma, Kahiko shouted in concern. Ready to quit boy, Hato mocked. Hato-sama. Hato turned to see Temujin back on his feet. He mused. Please stop this. This is madness, Temujin pleaded. What an annoying eyesore, Hato said as he prepared to blast Temujin before he suddenly jumped back as an arc of lightning passed between the two. Hato turned to see Naruto coming out of the rumble with lightning and aura became much more intense. Ho, aren't you a resilient one? Hato mocked as the orbs on his back turned into wings as he flew into the air. What will you do now, brat? Hato mocked. The wind began to gather around Naruto's feet as he began to float off the air. Hato raised his eyebrow at this. Aren't you full of tricks? Hato said as Naruto growled as he flies right into the air straight for Hato. Raiden. Raken. Naruto shouted but was shocked when the wings morphed in front of Hato in the shape of a shield. It soon morphed again and tied itself around his arm like a whip before Hato reared his arm back as Naruto flew with the whip before Hato slammed him into the wall. Hato raised Naruto out before slamming him into a pillar before continuing this for several more minutes. Temujin and Kahiko could only look in horror as they saw Naruto continuously back and forth. However, they failed to notice the lack of reaction from Naruto. Hato raised Naruto once more before slamming him near the center of the chamber. Hato then descended as he began to walk slowly towards Naruto. What the matter, boy? No insults to spew. He asked to only receive silence. Oh well, time to die. Hato said as he tried to strike the boy's heart, but Naruto caught the arm at the last second. What? Hato exclaimed. You're gonna have to do better than that. Rasengan. Naruto roared as he slamming the chakra sphere into Hato's chest as he was sent flying into the stone ceiling before collapsing into the ground. Naruto snorted. Word of advice. Don't talk so much garbage. Suddenly the rock crumbled as Hato came back up. The other occupants looked to see Hato get out of the rubble as all the injuries he received began to disappear and his power seemed to increase dramatically with his stone glowing even more. What's going on? Naruto asked. The Gelo mine, he's feeding on it to increase his power. Naruto sighed in annoyance. Great. He groaned out. Ha 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 ha. Unlimited power. Hato screamed to the high heavens. Naruto got into an aggressive battle stance. Great. The power has gone to his bloody head, he muttered. Hato suddenly disappeared again. Naruto coughed out blood as Hato delivered a fierce uppercut to the gut before sending him back with a left cross. Naruto tumbled a bit before regaining his balance a bit. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Suddenly 20 clones appeared around Naruto. Oh, clones. Hato asked out loud. A futile effort, he exclaimed as he expelled more of his power. We'll see. The clones all lunged towards Hato from different directions with the madman just looking amused the whole time. Hato quickly caught the fists of 2 clones from his sides. He tilted his head to dodge a leg sweep. He slammed the 2 clones he caught together and causing them to disperse. 3 more clones tried a frontal assault, but Hato raised his right arm as it began to glow with the power of the Gelo stone. Vanish. Hato roared with one arm sweep as a wave of energy fired from his arm. Several of the clones were destroyed by the shockwave of the energy with only a few survived. One clone charged straight towards Hato as he reared his fist back as it was coated in a swirling twister of winds. Take this, Fuden. Senpuken Tornado Fist. Naruto roared as swung his fist as Hato merely smirked in amusement as he raised his arm as it was coated in life energy. The tornado fist slammed into the palm of the madman, but to the clone's shock, there was no evidence of damage from his jutsu. What the hell? Hato smirked. The power of the Gelo stone cannot be matched by anything, boy. Hato roared as he released a burst of energy that eradicated the clone. Hato was about to gloat once more when he felt his wrists and ankles get restricted. He looked to see silver chains around them as he saw the chains coming from 4 of the remaining clones. Oh, interesting. Chains. This would make you part of the Uzumaki clan. I wonder if you have heard of Naruto Uzumaki. What do you want with him? Naruto growled out. What the hell did this bastard want with him? Why, to use him for my purposes, of course, Hato said without hesitation. Like hell, you will. Rasengan. Naruto roared as he slammed the sphere of chakra into Hato's chest, but was shocked when Hato's life energy was stopping him from piercing his skin. Ha 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 ha, as long as I am connected to the Gelo mine I can never lose. Hato proclaimed as he blasted Naruto back as he destroyed the last of the clones. Menma-kun, Kahiko shouted as he ran towards him, only to be blasted away. Gah, Kahiko shouted in pain. Stay put, old man, as we have some unfinished business. Stop, Hato-sama. Temujin pleaded again. Hato glared at his former pawn. Time to finish you. Hato sneered as he raised his arm over his head as life energy began to condense into a giant ball of energy. Farewell, pawn. Hato muttered as he flung the ball of energy towards him. Temujin. Kahiko cried as the blonde knight was enveloped in a bright explosion. Hato smirked in triumph as he waited to see his handiwork at the remains of his former pawn. However, that smirk disappeared as he saw 2 armor drones in front of a downed Temujin. Why you saved me, Temujin said in shock as he saw steam come out of the drone knights as they collapsed to the ground. Temujin's eyes widened when he saw the apparitions of his friends smiling at him before disappearing. Everyone, Temujin said softly. Hato clicked his tongue in annoyance. What annoying brats, how dare they disobey me like this? It seems I will have to punish them, once I am done here. You're not getting out of here alive, someone said. Everyone turned to see Naruto standing up again as he slowly walked towards Hato once more. Menma-kun, Kahiko shouted in relief. Still alive, brat. I must admit you are resilient, but you will still fall. Hato said, but Naruto still had his head down. You're just like them, Naruto said as Hato looked confused. Like who? The people of Konoha, he replied. Oh, is this about the boy Naruto? Yes, such a shame of his untimely death due to them banishing him. All for failing a mission. So amusing yet laughable that they would go that far just to get rid of their Jinchuriki. I wished I had reached him earlier. He would have made such a useful pawn. Hato laughed in an amused tone as Temujin and Kahiko glared at him. However, all three paused as they felt a fierce ki envelop the area. They turned to see Menma glaring at the man as the black aura he was enveloped in became much fiercer. That is why you are just like Konoha. You don't care about who you hurt or use. All you care about is yourselves. Naruto said in an enraged tone. What of it? Hato said in an uncaring tone. It pisses me off, your arrogant piece of shit. You never care about who you hurt as long as you get what you want. And then, you toss them aside like trash just like you did to Temujin. I hate people just like you. Just like how I hate Konoha. I hate them. I wish I had just killed them when I had the chance. Naruto roared as his aura exploded outwards as it sent several shockwaves across the chamber. Hato and the others were shocked by the sheer power that Menma was releasing as they never expected someone so young to have so much power. However, what confused them was his rant that he gave off. It was like he had some personal vendetta against Konoha. Unknown to Naruto was that his Sharingan had changed. A third Tomo had appeared in both eyes. He now had fully matured Sharingan. Ahahahahahaha. Finally, you admit it. You admit that you hate Konoha. That you want nothing more than to blow that damn village to kingdom come. Ah. It feels so good to see you say it. Are you done, Yami? Ah, no need to be so cruel, Hikari. If you hadn't noticed, I am dealing with a psychopath wanting to take over the entire continent. So unless you want to help, stay quiet until I am done. Oh well, I was gonna tell you that your admittance to your hatred has broken the first wall to the rest of your yokai power. You now have access to possibly 50% of it. Now then show them hell. I was planning to. Naruto roared as felt his body began changing. Dark markings with silver tribal markings covered the entire right half of his body as he gained his wings and tail once more. However, one noticeable change was his forearms turning much more scaly as his hands became claws. Naruto looked at his new form in wonder as he flexed his hands and extra appendages. Just the hell are you? Hato asked as the other two looked on in shock. Naruto looked up to glare at Hato from his mask. Unpredictable, Naruto said as he disappeared in a blur and slammed an uppercut into Hato's gut. The madman gasped as he coughed out bile and blood from the attack. Naruto then swung a right hook followed by a swift cross and then sending Hato back with a roundhouse kick. Hato stumped back as he skidded across the ground from the attacks. Temujin looked in shock at the sudden turn of the fight. Hato got back to his feet as he glared at Naruto. I will not be denied by a brat like you. Hato roared as he raised both his arms and began to create another giant sphere like the one he tried to use on Temujin, but this one was much bigger. Naruto summoned one shadow clone as he raised one arm and began to swirl chakra into the palm to create a Rasengan. However, Naruto decided to try out something he has been testing for some time. His clone raised his hands to the swirling ball as he began to summon wind chakra and slowly fed it into the forming Rasengan. The result was the ball of chakra taking a white hue as it began emitting a swooshing sound as the Rasengan increased to the size of a beach ball with 4 blades spinning around it. The two Narutos nodded as they glared at Hato. Oi Temujin, Naruto called to the knight. Give me some of your Gello power and let's settle this. Temujin looked in shock at what Naruto was asking. Time to die, Hato shouted. Now or never Temujin, Naruto shouted as he began rushing towards Hato. Temujin quickly got up and rushed towards Naruto as he held his hand out to Naruto's palm. Temujin used his life energy to swirl it into Naruto's hand. The masked nin took it from there as he began swirling chakra as the two energies melded together to form a large Rasengan that was mint green in color with a blue hue in the center. Fall, Hato roared. Gello Rasengan, Naruto roared as the two life energy attacks collided against one another. Shockwaves once more ripped apart the chamber as Naruto roared as the two attacks ripped each other apart. Naruto continued flying as he appeared tight in front of Hyde as tried shielding himself again. Try blocking this, Fuden. Rasengan, Naruto roared as he slammed the elemental Rasengan into Hato. The shield was easily ripped apart as Hato continued to look in shock as the Rasengan slammed into his abdomen as it ripped his skin and organs before ripping out from the back. Hato cried in pain as he was sent down with a large boom. Naruto floated back down to see Hato dead. He sighed as he powered down from his form and deactivated his Sharingan. It's over, Naruto muttered with Temujin nodding as Kahiko approached them. Menma-kun, Temujin, thank you, he said gratefully as looked up to see something behind the boys. Look, the two turned to see the mural that was covered in black now visible to them. So that was behind the black mural. It showed the people together to share the power of the Stone of Gelul. What do we do now? Naruto asked. I still say we destroy the stones, Kahiko said. I don't think that's necessary, Temujin said as the two looked at him. Though Hado was deceiving me, I still believe in the idea of a utopia. All we need is to be a unified front to be able to achieve it. I believe the stones can help in that endeavor. You honestly believe anyone in this country would agree to this? They would cry for blood for this power and war will erupt. Kahiko lectured with a grim look in his eyes. A war was going to erupt the moment this became known to the world. You're fortunate it didn't, but you can't keep this here anymore. Naruto explained. Kahiko looked at Naruto in shock. You believe in this nonsense, Menma. The belief in a utopia is not foolish but is challenging. Hado went about it the wrong way. But I believe with your help and Temujin we can create an empire that was just as proud as your former one but unifies this entire continent with the goal of having everyone under one leadership to end wars and conflict as much as possible. Erasing war entirely may be a dream, but we can reduce it as much as we can. But only if we do it together. The two men looked at Naruto in surprise and suspicion. Just who are you, Menma? Kahiko asked. Naruto sighed as he took his mask off as his hair went back to its true color. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I believe we have a lot to talk about, gentlemen. A few days later. Thank you for all your help, but it's time for us to go, Kahiko said as everyone was on aboard their new carriages. I am just glad this trouble mission is over, Shikamaru said. So Temujin is going back to his continent? Sakura asked. Yes, he wants to reorganize everyone else that was left back in the other continent and bring them here. Although he won't be alone. Everyone turned to see Narugui on Temujin's shoulder. It seems Narugi has chosen his place, Kahiko said in a dejected tone as Emiya patted his back. The other Konoha shinobi were amused but stopped as they saw Menma and his team climbing onto the carriage. Where the hell are you going, bastard? Hiba questioned. Oh, Menma-kun is coming with us. I offered him a ride on his travels on along with his friends. Kahiko said in a cheerful tone. What about Gaara and his brother? Sakura asked in a suspicious tone. They needed to return to their village, Menma said. We still never finished our talk, Menma, Shikamaru said as he walked forward. Now, must you be so distrustful of him? Menma-kun protected me and Temujin from that bastard Hado and helped us destroy the Gelul mine. Yeah, but there was no explosion or beam of light to prove it. Hell, there wasn't any quake from the destruction. Shikamaru pressed on. Thanks to Temujin and Menma, we avoided that risk, Kahiko replied. Menma then waved his hand to Temujin. It's all right. What do you want, Nara? You helped us, but was your goal in this? What did you gain? He asked. I was merely hired by Gaara. If I gained anything, it was Suna's trust. Something you and your village have lost. Naruto mocked. What do you have against our village? Shikamaru had to ask. Menma growled, which got everyone rather nervous. Your actions against Naruto Uzumaki. I don't like Konoha. I utterly despise your village. A village filled with hypocrites, traitors, and backstabbers. A cesspool of mud and slime. Shikamaru frowned as while he did not like the words, he understood Menma's point of view. Especially if he had seen Naruto's memories. But why did he feel there was something more to his hatred? Sakura and Kiba looked enraged. The two began before both were captured in Shikamaru's shadow. Enough, Shikamaru ordered as the two calmed down but continued to glare at Naruto. Do you really hate my village that much? Yes, I do, and I have 2 messages for your Hokage. Naruto said, which made the ones from Konoha blink in confusion. Which are? Shikamaru couldn't help but ask. Tell her to keep any Konoha shinobi out of my way. I don't want any of you in my business. The 3 frown at the request as they are sure Tsunade would not adhere to this message. And the second? Shikamaru asked. Tell Tsunade that her family would ashamed of her actions regarding Naruto. Both sides of her family. Especially Mito and Kushina. That was all Naruto said as the carriages left onto the road once more. What the hell was that about? Kiba asked, but Shikamaru shook his head. I don't know, but we better head back and report to the Hokage. Back with the carriage, they discussing their last talk with the Konoha shinobi. You think they bought it? Kahiko asked. Naruto gave a grin under his mask. Perfectly, he said. How was my performance? Kahiko asked as Naruto and the others chuckled in amusement. Simply marvelous. I can't help but ask, but won't they be suspicious of you? Emina asked in a confused tone. That was the plan. They'll get suspicious of me along with their enemies that hide in the village, and I will use that to my advantage to crush them. Naruto explained. It's a bold plan. It could easily backfire. Kahiko warned as Naruto nodded. True, but there's a reason why I was called unpredictable. And now I have new allies to help me. Are you sure it was wise to let Temujin leave? Kahiko asked. He'll return eventually. We just need to continue to build our forces. When he is ready, he will send me the message. Naruto said as he gave them a smirk. Plus it helps we have a new ace up our sleeves. Not to mention our new spy network. Serafal cheerfully said. We promise to do our best. Everyone in the caravan exclaimed in a proud tone. Naruto and team smiled at the caravan's antics. Now then, I have the place for the Gelo mine, and I assume Azazel and Ajuka are staying to help with it. Naruto asked as Kahiko and the two mentioned nodded. That's correct. We are the best ones to study and help you utilize the damn thing properly, Azazel said. Naruto sighed as he leaned back to relax. How do you feel? Hinata asked as she could tell there was a change to Naruto. He seemed a lot more relaxed than before. It was like all the tension he had for a while was gone. Naruto took off his mask and gave her a quick peck on the lips that left her blushing as Serafal pouted, but blushed as Naruto gave her and Morgiana pecks on the cheek. Naruto got back to his seat as he looked at everyone. Better than ever, he said as he put his mask on and took a long-deserved nap. Meanwhile in Konoha, crack, everyone in the Hokage's office flinched as Tsunade crushed the glass cup in her hand. Are you sure he said that? She asked in a flat tone. Shikamaru and the others nodded rapidly. Every word, he replied. Tsunade sighed as he leaned back on her chair. You are dismissed and you are not allowed to speak about this to anyone, understood? Tsunade warned. Hi. The three nodded, but as Shikamaru left, his mind was going through everything he heard. He knew there was something more to this and he was going to find out about. Starting with who Mito and Kushina are and how they relate to Tsunade. Tsunade dismissed Shizune and the Anbu as she sighed in exhaustion and took another glass out to take a drink. What do you think? She asked the last occupant in the room. It sounds like a rogue Uzumaki that has beef with us, Jiraiya said truthfully. That was what I was thinking. He must have dyed his hair to hide his identity. Tsunade theorized. She never thought anyone of the Uzumaki clan was still out there. Then again, they were resilient as they were resourceful, so it's not that surprising to hear some members that survived the fall of Uzu. It also sounds like he knows Naruto's heritage, Jiraiya said in a concerned tone. Yes, but how? Naruto never knew, and we swore not to tell him anything until we deemed him ready to know. You forget there was one other that knew about his heritage. Tsunade looked confused before her eyes widened in realization. The Kyuubi. The Toad Sage nodded. Yup, I bet the Kyuubi told Naruto and the Gaki told this to Menma and now he is out for blood. Our blood, Jiraiya emphasized. Tsunade did not look convinced. You really think one guy would wage war against an entire village? She asked. Jiraiya shrugged his shoulders. You forget what Itachi did to the Uchiha clan in one night. He asked. Fair point, she responded. What do we do? Jiraiya said as Tsunade shook his head. He hasn't done anything to our shinobi, so we can't detain him for no reason. But, Tsunade paused as she rose from her chair and looked out to the village from her window. But, Tsunade then turned to him. I want our shinobi to try and bring in for questioning. That information he has is too dangerous to let him walk free, she said. I will try and see what I can dig up, Jiraiya said as he disappeared in a column of smoke. Tsunade sighed as she got back on her seat and poured another glass to look at the Hokage picture, but stopped on Minato's. I am sorry Minato, Kushina, Mito Bachan, Hashirama Gigi, I really failed you in our clans. Tsunade replied in a regretful tone. Root HQ, you know your mission. Find this rogue Uzumaki and bring him to me. Danzo demanded. His agents nodded as they disappeared. Suddenly another root ninja appeared as they kneeled before him. Danzo-sama. Danzo looked at the nin. Report. The Tsuchikage is asking for a response. As the peon handed a folder to Danzo. The Warhawk scanned the document before looking back at the messenger. Tell him I support Operation Black Inferno. However, advise holding off until we have built our forces up more. Go. Hi. This village will be mine, Hiruzen. Nothing shall stop me. I may have lost the weapon, but I will win in the end. Danzo said to himself. Meanwhile in Odo, this is fascinating, Orochimaru said as he looked at the interesting news from Konoha. Orochimaru-sama, this person may be the same one that destroyed our lab in the Land of Sea. Kabuto said as it made sense that this rogue Uzumaki would be responsible, especially since they had a few members looked away in that lab. Orochimaru hummed in thought before addressing his second-in-command. Perhaps, but of little consequence. I have everything I needed from that place. Tell me anything from our allies. Hiriko is progressing on his Chimera project. Danzo is rounding his route to find this Menma Uzuka's. The idea of it being an Uzumaki has gotten Iwa and Kumo also a bit riled up as well. Orochimaru laughed in amusement. Of course they would be riled up. The Raikage is obsessed with bloodlines and Iwa has a grudge with the Uzumaki as bad as the one they have with Minato Namikaze. What will we do, sir? Kabuto asked. Nothing for now. The snake Sanin responded. Is that wise? Not to worry. We will prioritize raising our forces for the coming years for our grand plan. We failed to invade Konoha, but next time we won't fail. We won't waste our energy on one rogue ninja. What will be different from last time? Kabuto asked. Orochimaru smirked. I will have several up my sleeve, he said as he took out a white Hanya mask with golden horns. Several days later in Uzu. That was easier than I thought, Naruto said as he looked at the handiwork of himself, Azazel, and Ajuka. Ha, you underestimate our genius, as they looked at the Gelo mine now in place of where Uzu's crystal mine used to be in. Well, then all in a day's work. Come on you two, Naruto said as the three began walking out of the mine. I can't wait to see how we can apply it to ordinary citizens. Give them the ability to fight. Maybe implant it to armor and weapons to make them stronger. Oh, maybe use it to augment seals and recreate the flying machines of our old empire. We can. Ajuka began muttering to himself of all the possibilities he could envision with the Gelo mine. Naruto and Azazel sweat drop at Ajuka's babbling. Does he do this often? Naruto asked as he looked at Azazel. Only when he finds something interesting. As the men returned to Wave, Naruto went to his study as he took out something from his pocket. A Gelo stone that he took from Hato's corpse. Naruto took the stone and also took out the chakra crystal that in the region. He then pushed the two gems together as there was a bright light as the two gems resisted a bit, but Naruto was persistent as he pushed forward as he channeling chakra into the two. Suddenly the two stones merged together. There was breath flash that blinded Naruto. When the light died down, he looked down to see his handiwork and smiled. The gem still looked like a crystal, but now was glowing a shade of teal with a blue hue at the center. I think I will call you a Kyber crystal, Naruto said to himself before taking out the Raijin. He opened the blade and placed the crystal inside. After closing the blade, he began charging chakra into the blade. The blonde smiled as a light blue energy blade erupted from the handle of the blade. Naruto smirked in victory. Things are definitely looking up, he said to himself. Soon Hikaru, soon, you're almost ready, but let's see if you're ready to get the rest of your power. Konoha better watches out, its days are numbered. Sand bullets, futon, air bullets, Gaara called as he fired off several sand and wind projectiles. Naruto took a deep breath and shouted, Sweden, liquid bullets. The bullets collided against one another and created against one another at standstill. When the two stopped their attacks as muddy sand and water covered their arena. Naruto followed up by crying out, Sweden, water shockwave jutsu. Using the water already around them, he manipulated the liquid to create a giant vortex that went straight to Gaara. The sand Jinchuriki did not seem intimidated as he created a thick wall of sand to block the attack. The water shockwave slammed into the sand wall. Gaara stumbled back slightly but stood firm as he withstood the water jutsu as it drilled his wall. However, due to adding minerals into the stand to increase its sturdiness, the sand wall withstood the water shockwave attack. It would take more than that to stop me, Naruto, Gaara warned. The blonde gave his brother in pain a challenging smirk. Bring it, Gaara. The sand ninja nodded. Very well. Gaara unleashed a potent amount of chakra as he clapped his hands together. Sand tsunami. A massive tidal wave of sand erupted around Gaara as it sailed towards Naruto. The blonde ninja had only one thing to say to the upcoming sand fall. Shit. Those were the last words Naruto could utter before being overtaken by the sand. Everyone observing the fight flinched at the sheer force of the sand that enveloped Naruto. Oh, that's going to hurt, Seraphal noted as everyone else nodded. He's going to have sand everywhere after this, Hinata said with a nervous giggle. Chiyuya crossed her arms with a glare. Then he's going to shower until he gets all of it. He is not sleeping on the bed otherwise. That's mean, Chiyuya, Hinata replied. However, the redhead shook her head. No, it's me keeping our bed clean. She countered. Gaara looked around the area covered in his sand. There is no way that would be enough to beat Naruto, he was far too tough for that. I know you are stronger than this, Naruto, he murmured as he and everyone else felt a spike of chakra. Suddenly an arc of lightning erupted from the sand as Naruto jumped out and landed several feet back with the Kiba blades in his hands. The two shinobi stared at one another. Let's settle this, Gaara, Naruto finally said. Agreed. Gaara manipulated all the sand to form a large construct in the shape of a familiar tanuki with a large drill in its right arm. Fuden. Shukaku drill, Gaara shouted. Naruto smirked as he commanded his blades as lightning danced over the cloudy heavens. Raiden. Raryu no Tatsumaki, lightning release, lightning dragon's tornado. Naruto manipulated his chakra into wind and lightning chakra along with the natural wind and lightning into the shape of a large serpentine dragon. The two jutsus collided against one another. The two attacks nullified each other as an explosion erupted as it sent Naruto and Gaara flying back. The observers had to shield their eyes as sand and wind flew past them. When the dust settled, everyone saw Naruto and Gaara slowly get up as they walked towards one another. When they reached one another, they offered each other a handshake. That was a good fight, Gaara. You've gotten stronger, Naruto complimented. As have you, my friend, Gaara replied. As they approached the others, Naruto offered some small talk. Any luck with giving Shukaku the olive branch? Gaara sighed. He's still resilient, but I believe his last chat with Ari has gotten to at least be willing to cooperate when Akatsuki or anyone else comes after us. Naruto nodded. He knew it would take some time before Gaara and Shukaku could truly work together. That's better than nothing for now. As they reached everyone, Naruto thought back to how long it's been since he lived in Wave. It's been close to 6 months since Naruto was banished and around 3 weeks since the incident with the Stone of Gelul, and a bit of change has occurred since then. Ever since the incorporation of the stone into Uzu, there have been some interesting effects on the island village. The rivers were being filled with the famous minerals that made the village so valuable. The restoration crew found numerous precious stones and gems popping up all around the island. Naruto was already thinking of using the stones as bargaining chips with other countries, but once the island was fully restored and the farming and agriculture sections were set up and operational, they could several different kinds of corn, wheat, rice, beans, and other valuable crops that no one else could have access to, but themselves. He really had to thank Azazel and Ajuka for their brilliant minds, since they were the ones that set the stones in the first place. Speaking of those two, the minute they were done with the stones, they were already working on their next big projects. Azazel and Ajuka were discussing blueprints with Koyuki and the engineers of Spring Country for several crazy, yet igneous ideas. An air battalion of blimps that rain hell on any enemy below, using the crystals to power the city along with vehicles for civilians to use for travel, vehicles that could travel under the seas and work in tandem with the future fisherman division of the Uzu army when it's established, and even working on new improved chakra armors and chakra weapons. Oh yeah, those two felt like they were in paradise at the moment. One important that did occur recently was Altair with Ari and Naruto sneaked to the Uzumaki temple to get all of the masks and to keep them away from the wrong hands. However, they noticed one mask was missing. The Shinigami mask. Naruto had a pretty good idea of who stole it, but he would have to deal with that at a later time. Everyone else had been busy recruiting more clans and countries to their cause. Recently Naruto had been on 2 different missions saving the daimyo of bird and vegetable countries from attempts at their lives. And of course, the 2 daimyos were female and eagerly agreed to Naruto's desire for an alliance. Naruto had to wonder if every future female ruler he meets or saves will end up falling for him. He knew these alliances are very important, and the most common way to maintain such alliances was through political marriages. Though despite it being a political marriage, Naruto will love all of his partners with all his heart and soul, and he knew they will feel the same. Even if he is not the last male Uzumaki, he will need to ally himself with many countries to help rebuild his homeland, regardless of how many of his lost brethren he finds. The other interesting event to occur was recruiting the Fuma clan from the land of rice to their cause. After revealing to them the true colors of Orochimaru, he was able to convince the members to abandon him and join his cause. Sadly, not everyone agreed to the change and several members died in the fight that ensued. Sesame, the current head of the clan, lost her brother and several of her friends in the battle that followed. Despite the heartbreak, Sasama pressed on with the new alliance with Naruto. Sesame had been down for a couple of days, but Naruto quickly noticed that her demeanor changed after meeting a certain sand user. Naruto was considering if maybe he should get his brother in bird in the harem as well to help him understand emotions better. He had to shake his head at the amusing thought but filed it away for later. As for his powers, Naruto continued to become more proficient in using his Sharingan and his elemental abilities. Ari was constantly pushing, along with Jugo. Suigetsu helped him with his swordsmanship and Hinata helped him with his taijutsu. Everyone else each pitched in their own way. As for his yokai powers, he was getting more proficient in using new state he unlocked for his powers, but knew he may have to confront Yami if he truly wants to get full control. However, that will have to wait for a bit before he confronts his dark half. Suddenly Altair appeared in front of the group and they all noticed her concerned look. Naruto, she said. What's wrong, Altair? Naruto asked. This. Altair waved her hand as several unconscious masked shinobi fell to the ground. However, there was no ordinary shinobi. Naruto recognized their masks from his father's notes. These are Root Nin. They're part of Danzo's personal secret army. Naruto noted. Where did you find them? They were scouting out the forest area just outside Wave. I caught all of them and demanded to know who sent them. They refused to answer and tried to kill themselves to die with their secrets, but I managed to stop them before they could. After getting rid of the seals on their tongues and the mental barriers set up, I got all the information about their mission. Ultier explained. They're out looking for you, Naruto. Or to be more precise, they are looking for Menma Uzuka's. He knows that you are an Uzumaki and he wants you to be part of his army. I really doubt Tsunade gave out that information so easily, Hinata said. Naruto shook his head. No, he probably listened in on the mission report from Shikamaru. What do we do? Ultier asked. Naruto looked deep in thought. Have you rewritten their memories? Ultier nodded. That and made sure to restore all of their defenses. They all think they found nothing from Wave and plan to return to Konoha to report to Danzo. Naruto nodded. Good. This is a golden opportunity to get some dirt on Danzo, he said. Everyone, minus Ari, turned to look at him in confusion. How do you plan to do that? I doubt Danzo would let random foot soldiers know anything that could incriminate him. You're right, which is why we need to follow them into the village. Now everyone looked at Naruto as if he grew two heads and a set of tails. How do you plan to get in the village with them, get the information you're looking for, and get out of there and return here with no one following you back? Hyuga demanded. Naruto gave her a cheeky grin. I have a new trick I learned from Ari. Something to replace my toad contract. The fox demon gave a fanged smile as she knew what Naruto was plotting. Nippo. 9 masked beasts. Several 9 symbols appeared above him as each one had a different kanji. The kanji were Seiryu, Byako, Suzaku, Genbu, Kinja, Tenyo, Shinigami, Hokuto Senin, and Nanto Senin. However, what the group did not expect were 9 little fox kits with white masks to come out of the seal. Oh, they're so cute. Nearly every single girl in the group squealed. They're made from pieces of Aries chakra, Naruto explained. Each tailed beast has a special power. Shukuaku has his magnet release, Matabi with her blue flames, etc. Ari can manipulate pure chakra better than any of the other Biju. She can separate pieces of her own chakra and give them some sense of sentience. Hell, they can even act as shadow clones for one or both of us. Naruto then looked at the rest of the group. These guys will hide with 9 of these fools, and once they are in the village and get into the root base, Ari will take control to search the compound until we find what we can get. Everyone looked impressed at Naruto's plan. It was risky, but it could give them an advantage over Danzo. You really are a devious man, Naruto-kun. Ultier gave her future husband a sly smile. Naruto chuckled as he gave a cheeky smirk. I do my best. Underground location in Konoha, nighttime. Report. Danzo commanded to his kneeling subordinates. We regret to say that we found no sign of Menma Uzuka's in Wave Country, Danzo-sama. One of the kneeling shinobi replied. I see. Did you see anything unusual while in the country? The masked nin shook their heads. No, sir. The only activity we observed was Tazuna seemed to be away working on some project of his. Did you out what kind of project this was? Danzo inquired. No, sir. All we could learn was that it was of a personal matter to Tazuna. Danzo nodded. Very well. You're all dismissed. Once his subordinates, Danzo turned as he walked out of his compound. As he was walking away, he thought about Menma Uzuka's. That Uzumaki may have evaded him for now, but he will find him and he will get him to become part of his army. Should he resist, then he'll just eliminate him as he did to his brethren in Uzu and with the Uchiha clan. Anything that endangers the standing of Konoha is an enemy and must be destroyed. Once Orochimaru, Kumo, and Iwa finish their plans and get rid of all those currently in power, he can come in and save the village before turning it into the military power it should have been from the beginning. He just had to wait. He had plenty of time. As Danzo disappeared, several shadows rose out of the ground and formed into 9 masked foxes. The 9 foxes looked at one another before nodding and going to different directions to search the large compound. This proved to be quite the task as the compound was much larger than they had expected, but they persevered as they tried to find something incriminating on Danzo. After several more minutes of searching, one of the masked foxes found a locked door. It quickly turned into wisps of chakra and slid underneath the door and into the other side. The moment the chakra remerged into the fox, it raised its paw to reveal a seal. The seal glowed before sending out a pulse throughout the room. The masked fox was enveloped in a cloud of smoke to reveal Ari. All right, now that I'm in and cloaked, time to do some searching. Ari looked around to find several file cabinets in the room. She created 2 shadow clones as they all used another seal they had to detect and deactivate any security that may be on the cabinets. After making sure that it was safe, the 3 Ari opened the cabinets to find them filled with files. The 3 of them, this was going to take a while. Ari quickly went through each file as quickly as she could to find any dirt that she could get on Danzo. And oh boy was she finding some serious dirt. The more they read, the harder it was to suppress the boiling anger that was screaming to be let out. Oh Danzo, your sins are far wider than I or anyone else had expected. But make no mistake, you will pay for every last one. Ari growled. I think we have enough dirt on the mummy, one of the clones said in a strained tone. Ari was about to speak, but all three froze when they heard approaching footsteps. Someone's coming. It's time to leave. Ari could feel the others had finished their job and teleported back to Wave. The two shadow clones disappeared before Ari used her teleportation magic to leave, but not before making sure everything was left just as it was before she entered. Meanwhile in Konoha, any luck Jiraiya? Tsunade asked as she took a sip of her drink. Her teammate had just returned from his recent search into Menma Uzuka's. The blonde Cage hoped Jiraiya had found him, but Jiraiya responded with a shake of his head. Unfortunately no, whoever this guy is, he is making sure he can't be found. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew I'm looking for him and is keeping a low profile for now. Tsunade sighed. I had hoped we would find him before he starts spilling out any secrets involving Naruto. Jiraiya scoffed. Trust me Haim, when news about Naruto's heritage comes out, both sides of his heritage, there's going to be a shitstorm like we've never seen before. Tsunade groaned. Don't remind me, the village is already in a cold civil war after Naruto's status was revealed. While I'm glad not everyone hated Naruto, as I can't help but feel like a failure after seeing how split my village has become. The village was already like this before you came into office, Tsunade. It was bound to happen eventually. It was just a matter of when. Jiraiya countered. Tsunade sighed. Perhaps you are right. Speaking of shitstorms, we have another problem. What is it? Shikamaru has been doing some research after he came back from his mission. He's found out about Mito and Kushina. Jiraiya facepalmed after hearing that bit of news. He let out a groan as he looked at his former teammate. What did he find out? He knows Mito was married to the Shodai Hokage, and that she was my grandmother. He knows about the Uzumaki clan. He's already put together from Kushina's time of death that she was Naruto's mother and found out that Kushina was married to Minato. Jiraiya had to bite back a curse. Leave it to Inara to figure this all out. What did you do? I asked him what he planned to do. He wanted to know why none of us were told this beforehand. He said the other rookies and especially Naruto had a right to know. I told him that some things were better left buried in the past. The Uzumaki clan was dead and its members were scattered to the four corners of the elemental nations. Naruto was not ready to know about his parents. If word got out about his heritage, all of his parents' enemies would stop at nothing to see him dead. Tsunade took another sip before pouring herself another cup to drink. What did he say to that? Jiraiya was curious about how Shikamaru would respond. Tsunade let out a bitter chuckle. He said that had Naruto been trained properly then he could have been prepared to face all those enemies. He also said that had Naruto found out in the worst possible way like from the Kyuubi or one of his enemies and he knew we kept this from him, he would turn his back on this village and watch it burn. Naruto would not have abandoned the village. Jiraiya denied. He is. Was too loyal. Shikamaru replied with everyone has a limit and even someone like Naruto can only take so much before they snap. That's the big reason why we never told him. We were scared of how he would react to the news. Tsunade and Jiraiya sighed in unison at that. Deep down, both knew they didn't want to tell Naruto, because they were scared, but they didn't want to admit it. So they covered it up with the reason was to protect Naruto from his parents' enemies. While it was a valid reason, it was not the real reason why they never told him. What did he say after that? Jiraiya asked after a moment of silence. He asked me if I planned to say anything or silence him to keep this quiet. Damn, Jiraiya whistled. Tsunade nodded. I told him I had no intention of killing him, but I asked him not to say anything yet. I told him we need to reveal these secrets slowly. The village is already split as it is. If this comes out, total anarchy is soon to follow and who knows what our enemies, both inside and out will do. What do you plan to do now? Tsunade sighed as she got to her feet. I am going to slowly integrate the Uzumaki and Senju history back into the academy's curriculum. I don't know who took them out and barely focused on my grandfather and his clan, but I intend to fix that. The council may not like that. Tsunade scoffed. The council can go to hell for all I care. I am done failing my family Jiraiya. I won't fail again. Not this time. What about Menma? Jiraiya asked, wondering what they should do about him. If you find him, just tell him that I want to talk to him. That's all. The Toad Sage nodded. Did you find anything else we should worry about and any updates on the Akatsuki? The Akatsuki have gone quiet. My guess, they're going to lay low until the Kyuubi possibly reforms again in 3 to 9 years. In the meantime, they'll probably bolster their forces when they eventually go after the other Biju. Tsunade nodded. That gave them some time to be ready. Anything else? Jiraiya scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, I recently got into some of my contacts in Iwa and Kumo. They're building up their forces too, Tsunade. I don't know when they'll be ready, but I know they're amassing their forces for something. Tsunade looked grimly at Jiraiya. An invasion. He nodded. It makes sense. We lost our Jinchuriki, which makes us vulnerable to both villages that have some serious grudges against us. Tsunade nodded. Do you think that Orochimaru would try and get involved in this? I would be surprised if he didn't get involved. This is the golden opportunity that he's been waiting for. He failed once, so now he will try again. Only this time he'll have 2 or more cages and possibly 4 Biju on his side. Tsunade sighed. Then we will have to bolster our forces as well. Jiraiya looked curious. What do you have in mind? I want all of the rookies from clans to have their training amped up. Both from their senseis and their clans. I will talk to them and tell them we may be facing an invasion soon. They need to get those kids ready for a war to break out. I also expect all the Jonin to get into tip-top shape as well. No more playing around from any of them. You think the kids will listen? Tsunade's eyes harden. If they want to survive, then they will have to put their differences aside for now. I will make it a direct order that cannot be ignored if I have to. Jiraiya nodded. I am also thinking it's time to complete Shizune's training. It's been on hold for far too long. Once she's done, maybe I can finally add my medical program to the academy as well. I am also thinking of taking Sakura, Ino, and Tenten as apprentices. All 3 have the potential to be a great medical ninja. They just need the right teacher. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. You sure about Sakura? She hasn't made it a secret that she hates Naruto's guts. Tsunade's eyes narrowed. Don't worry, I plan to break that brat before I put her back together. She and that Ino girl need to be humbled and I'm the perfect one to do it. Even if I didn't teach her, she would still learn medical ninjutsu from someone once the program is integrated. Jiraiya nodded. Fair enough. I think I will let my spies keep an eye out for Menma and anything suspicious from our enemies. In the meantime, I will head back to Mount Myoboku, he stated as he got up and began walking to the window. Tsunade looked curious. What did you have in mind? Jiraiya looked back at her. I think it's time I completed my sage mode. Tsunade's eyes widened. Are you sure? After so many years? Jiraiya shrugged. It's never too late. Plus we need to be ready to fight 4 Biju in several cages. I think that warrants me completing my sage mode. Maybe you should look into it as well from your slug contract. Jiraiya remarked as he jumped off the window, leaving Tsunade to contemplate his suggestion. Kumo, how are forces looking? Darui. The 4th Raikage asked. They are looking good, sir. Everyone is training hard and pushing themselves to the limit. In a few years, we should have an army composed of mostly Jonin level forces. Good. I want every last one of our ninjas to be at the level of a Jonin. That's the minimum requirement I expect from any of them. We don't know when the Tsuchikage or Orochimaru will be ready for the attack. Until then we need to be as strong as possible when the day comes. Is it wise to trust them, sir? I scoffed. Of course I don't trust. They are just a means to an end. I will use our alliance to get back at the Leaf Village for their multiple offenses against us. And once that village is crumbled and I finally get my Hyuga and any other useful bloodlines, I will destroy those other 2 and Kumo will be the supreme power in the elemental nations. Darui nodded. Any updates on B and Yugito? I asked. According to B, she is progressing quite well. She already had control of her Biju and now they're working on her utility of the Nibi's power. I nodded. Good, I want her to be as close as possible to being B's equal by the time we are ready. Those 2 will be our trump cards in case of any unexpected interventions. Anything on that rogue Uzumaki? Darui shook his head. Unfortunately no, Sama. There have been no sightings of Menma Uzuka since his first appearance. The best I have heard some whispers that he was in the land of birds and the land of vegetables. However, these sightings have not been confirmed and are currently only rumors. I nodded. I want to know the moment he is sighted. I want 2 squads ready to abduct him and drag him here. If we have to use B or Yugito then so be it. I failed to get Kushina into Kumo, but I won't fail this time. Darui nodded. Is that all, Raikage-sama? I nodded. You're dismissed. I sighed. Soon he will make Kumo the greatest in the elemental nations and then the world. He just needed to build up his forces for now. This would have all been completed much sooner had Kumo not failed to capture Kushina Uzumaki. With her genes and being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Kumo would have already had an army of super-powered soldiers. But that red-haired witch eluded their grasps. Even with the genetic material he recovered from those 2 shinobi to artificially create those 2 brats, they failed to show any signs of possessing the bloodline's abilities he desired. He got 2 promising shinobi, but they did not have what he was hoping for. Then came his failure to capture a Hyuga. Not once, but twice. But things will be different. Once he and his alliance invade Konoha, he'll have an entire clan to pick from and he will capture that Uzumaki and use him as he sees fit. Kumo will prevail against all the other villages. Iwagakure, secret prison cell. You shouldn't struggle so much, Mu. The Tsuchikage chided as he looked down at his chained captive. You're going to pay for all your crimes against my family and my clan. The captive man, Mu, snarled. If it weren't for my predecessor and myself, you and the rest of your so-called family and clan would be dead. You should feel grateful to me. Mu snorted. Oh yes, your generosity knows no bounds. The Tsuchikage gave a strained smile. Don't worry so much, you won't have to think about anything else for very long. He reached into his robes and pulled out a piece of paper with a very intricate seal on it. The Mu's eyes widened as he recognized what type of seal that was. What are you doing with that? Oh, so you recognize this. Then again I shouldn't be too surprised thanks to your clan's reputation. This was a gift from Orochimaru. Think of it as a test drive to see how effective it succeeds in its purpose. If it works, we will put it on the rest of your clansmen. The stone cage gave an ominous smile. If it fails, we'll just have to improve it and try again until it works. Hopefully, you won't have a mental breakdown before then. You won't get away with this, Mu warned. The Tsuchikage laughed. The thing is, we already have. No one can stop us. Not you and not that other Uzumaki. The Tsuchikage began approaching Mu as he tried to get out of his confines. The stone cage grabbed him by his cheeks and forced him to look at him. Now hold still. I was told this could be quite painful. The Tsuchikage placed the seal on Mu's forehead as it began to glow. The only thing that could be heard after that was Mu's screams of pain and anguish throughout the cavern. Aim. The masked Uchiha known as Tobi stared at Nagato who was floating in a tube of medical fluids with a breathing mask covering his mouth as Nagato breathed slowly in and out. How is Nagato? Tobi asked as he turns to Konan, Nagato's partner. His recovery is outstanding. At this rate, he'll be back at 100% in just a few months. He won't need the device and be able to walk on his own. Tobi nodded. His clan was always a tenacious bunch, he muttered. Konan to the masked ninja. What do you plan to do now? Tobi turned to her. We need to prepare ourselves for now. Improve our abilities and skills. Our plans have hit a slight snag with the Kyuubi's death. But this is a minor setback. I have plenty of contingencies in place. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And the Biju hunting? Konan asked. It was the main reason that the Akatsuki. Tobi shook his head. We will leave them alone for now. The villages will be more guarded with their Jinchuriki. Once we are prepared and find an opportunity when the villages are vulnerable, that is when we will attack. Tobi turned around as he began to walk away before pausing and glancing back at Konan. For now, focus on making sure Nagato is fully recovered. Once he is out of that tube, I want him to work until he can use all of his Rinnegan abilities without the need for his 6 corpses. Konan nodded. As you wish, Madara-sama. Wave country. Crack. The floor under Naruto splintered into pieces as he finished reading everything that Ari had found in her infiltration mission. He hoped to have found dirt on Danzo and oh boy did he ever. The crimes this bastard has committed could easily get half of the elemental nations to become his enemy. This bastard is going to pay. Naruto growled. This man has committed far too many crimes to be forgiven. An equally enraged Gaara said. He has caused many of us in this room to suffer due to his greed and ambition. All for his vision of Konoha. Hinata snarled in anger after reading one particular file. The gene splicing, aiding an attempted kidnapping, instigating a massacre, traitorous actions against his cage and against several villages and countries. An entire war could be started if we spread this. No, Naruto replied. Everyone turned to him. They knew he wouldn't say no without a good reason. At least not yet, Naruto elaborated. We need to draw him out somehow into the open. When we have him on the run, that's when we will spring all of this. We will corner his escape routes until he no options left. How do you plan to do that? Ari asked. Naruto gave her a dark smirk. Oh, we have several ways, Ari-chan. We just have to be patient. Until then we all have to get stronger, and when Uzu is ready to reveal themselves to the world, that is when we will make our move against him and our enemies. Naruto turned to see everyone nodding in agreement. Danzo, Orochimaru, Kumo, Iwa, they will learn to never cross an Uzumaki. To do so means to invite death. And we will bring death to them. He remarked darkly. A dark cloud seems to have fallen over Konoha, Iwa, and Kumo as Danzo, Orochimaru, and the Tsuchikage all felt a chill go down their spines.